Okay, I was gonna ask you guys, what do you guys think about Bobby Lee saying that he was never actually molested by a guy with Down syndrome?
I heard about that, but I don't know the backstory.
I don't either. We just covered Bobby Lee on another topic. Interesting.
So he says that like a lot of his stories and the jokes that he tells are like it's just completely made up. So that never happened to him. And honestly, I know this is like weird, but like I was actually devastated to find out that it was a lie. I mean,
you wanted
right? I really wanted him to be molested by a guy with Down syndrome. Like, I was devastated to find out that didn't actually happen to him.
Oh wow! Look at this. Okay, Tijuana prostitute story is made up. Dark joke. I didn't have sex with minors. See, I don't know this backstory at all. Bobby Lee is defending a controversial story he's repeated over the years about traveling to Tijuana for sex and paying for an underage prostitute. Sorted for sure, but he says it's also total fiction. That's the part that makes me go, ooh. Maybe it is true, and he's just saying it's made up to avoid like a Me Too backlash or like a underage sex backlash. I think that's more the truth because. Something like that's like a long, very particular, and I haven't heard the story, but like, I don't know. It's hard for you to make a whole story up and have no nuggets of truth there.
That's kind of so on our show, we just covered this whole story where previously he'd been on the Opie and Anthony show actually and talked about his vacation to Tijuana where he may or may not have paid an underage prostitute and had sex with them. Okay. And apparently there was some subreddit that brought this back up recently and he felt the need to address it. And our whole take on it was, whether it was true or not, that shouldn't be something, like you had admitted to this time and time again previously, maybe don't address this and try to like retcon this whole thing and like walk it back. If you had previously said this is something I did, he kind of made a lot more problems for himself recently than maybe he needed to. But if this was indeed true, obviously it's gross and wrong.
Yeah, so the comedian has recently come under fire on social media due to resurfaced clips of the Tijuana tale where the story goes, Bobby went to Hooker Alley and picked out a young prostitute who seemed shy. See, that to me is like, that's a lot to make up.
Right.
I don't know. Unless it happened to a very close friend of yours, then I could see you just taking a whole story from someone else. But again, like I'd have to hear it. Okay, there are different versions of the story where the prostitute's age differs, including one where Bobby said the prostitute looked like a 13-year-old Natalie Portman in The Professional, but the stories all end with him having sex with a young woman in a cheap hotel room. Ugh. Bobby is finally responding to the backlash in the latest episode of his Tiger Belly podcast where he says, at the end of the day, it's not real and I didn't do anything. I mean, that definitely gets you out of trouble if you know what I mean? Like if that's the response to say that completely gets you off the hook. Oh, it's all made up.
He had so many specifics in the story when he was previously retelling it on all sorts of shows in the past, which is what people are kind of worked up about, of course.
Right. The way Bobby explains things, he first told the joke on Opie and Anthony, the Shock Jock radio show from back in the day. And Anthony is, for you guys who don't know, who started Compound Media, where I have my show on Mondays. And he says the story was actually a combination of a couple awful dark jokes. Bobby understands the current uproar, but he says back when he first told the Tijuana story, it was encouraged to say crazy stuff without thinking about it. And he says, when I listen back to it now, it puts a chill down my spine. I don't believe that. He says his views change with society. No, it sounds like he's becoming kind of a pussy and is afraid of getting canceled. And he now feels guilt over the story, which he describes as terrible and stupid. Really? So you all of a sudden don't find it funny anymore? Why would you do a story over and over that wasn't funny? I think you still find it funny, but you're just afraid of getting canceled now.
And he does that quite a lot. And I think Khalyla has played a huge role in that too. I don't know how deep any of you have gone into Bobby Lee, but like Khalyla owns, I think, more than half of Tiger Belly now. And they'd had a relationship and it was really nasty. And she kind of like ran him over, so to speak. And he's kind of become like spineless in a lot of situations lately. And it's been really sad to see that.
Why do women always have to ruin a good thing?
She's a whole nother like rabbit hole on her own. Like this is not even alleged. Like there's actual video clips out there talking about like how she has like jacked off German Shepherds before. I'm not kidding. And had sex with her brother. And this is all on clips. Like there's a streamer on YouTube called Too Lazy to Try that has whole videos on her, and it's like video of her actually saying it on the show and stuff like that. And it's just things she says like matter of factly that she just seems like it's not a big deal.
If you play this, it's interesting what Khalyla says when he explains this.
Okay, so this is Lila's tweet. In quotes, I was never molested by a guy with Down syndrome. It was a joke that I said on stage, and then I just started saying it, and people would laugh every time I would say it, and it just became part of my origin story. The Joker has a bunch of origin stories. I do too.
I'm improvising.
Really?
It's not like I have a laptop and I'm going, oh well, like what character am I gonna write? No, I'm like literally just saying it for the first time out loud on a radio show. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Really? Opie and Anthony? That was like probably the biggest show for comics at that time. It was a huge springboard into success, into a creating a bigger fan base. I don't know that I would tell a brand new story for the first time that I didn't know if it was funny or not on Opie and Anthony. But who knows? Maybe he's like, I'm sure he's naturally hilarious, so
he went for it.
And I remember doing the story and people going, yeah, this is crazy, right? And I have to thank Opie and Anthony because I learned how to podcast through that show. You know, I became a regular on that show. They all became really good friends of mine. I developed this muscle of being stronger and not as like, you know what I mean? I used to collapse really easily. And I just learned how to do what I do now through that show. And I became friends.
Which is like absurd storytelling.
Yeah, it's crazy storytelling. You know, I want to also give you
Hold on, are they still dating? Or did they break up?
So update on that. They had broke up quite a while ago. She and her family were actually living in his house for the longest time, even though they'd broken up, and they just moved out, and she's still on the show with him. So
oof.
Yep.
Awkward.
It's gonna be uncomfortable.
Very. She loves it though. Of course.
As an example of that, and I hate giving shit away. I was never molested by a guy with Down syndrome.
Surprise, everyone.
You know, it was such a joke I said on stage, right? And then I just started saying it, and people would laugh every time I would say it, and it just became a part of my origin story. You know what I mean?
And did it happen?
Like the Joker has a bunch of origin stories. I do too, right?
You have 10.
Yeah, but
yeah. So it's like I remember my brother going one time. We were like driving to Koreatown, and he goes, "You were never molested by a guy with Down syndrome." I go, "I know." You know what I mean? Oops. You know. And I go, but you can't say anything.
But also, like 90% of your act, even today, is not real shit about me. You talk about crazy shit about me that's like not fucking real.
Not only that, like we've had guests on.
I don't know. They had a lot of time to line up their stories. I don't know. I don't really know him well enough to be able to tell if he's lying or not, but it seems pretty convenient that you're all of a sudden lying about a very problematic story in your set.
Yeah, isn't this one of those cases where if he got canceled over sleeping with the underage girl, where it would actually be warranted because we don't like predators?
Well, look what happened to Crystalia. I mean, look, there's been a couple of comics that, yikes, like have done shit with underage girls.
I'm shocked though that Crystalia still somehow goes on and keeps doing shows. I was actually shocked to go on Instagram the other day when one of my close personal friends from college was taking a picture with her arm around him, like at one of his shows, like, oh my God, Crystalia just killed it. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
He still has that star power. He has, he's very confident. I don't think I've ever seen his stand up, but I
haven't either.
He's intensely confident.
Yep.
He has BDE.
On the show that said, hey, you told that story about us and that never happened, or it's completely wrong. Right. And you know, there's provable, you know what I mean, moments, hundreds of them.
A lot of evidence.
But my question is like, I don't know, like it's pretty obvious that, at least for me, even before I knew you, like I'm going to Bobby Lee for comedy, not autobiographical nonfiction.
Yeah.
Like that's just as simple as that.
I do want to say I understand the uproar.
It was a tasteless, fucked up joke.
Yeah, because at the
she's like reprimanding him.
Yes, but she's trying to play it off at the same time. Like, oh, it was just a joke. It might not have landed, but it was still just a joke, you know?
I just don't think, I mean, I've dated other comedians. I just don't think you should ever tamp down someone's creativity or, I mean, I would encourage someone to be more offensive, not less, but they're, you know, she seems very LA.
The time when I said it, I literally didn't think anything of it. It was just like almost like a prerequisite. Is that the right word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Prerequisite.
Right? It was like almost encouraged to say crazy shit. I never thought about it. When I listen to it now, it puts a chill down my spine. It's terrible.
A chill?
Because I changed with society. Right? And I look at that fucking
get ready.
story and I feel guilt over it. It's fucking terrible. You know, it was stupid to say it as many times as I said it. Right?
This is really soft.
You know, I've always been in relationships.
Cue the
We
violin.
dated for 10 years, lived together. Sarah Hyland, we lived together. I've never done any of that shit because I'm not a weird dude.
He is talking like a guy who got caught cheating. Do you listen to his tone? He's like, I never, he sounds like a person in trouble.
Yes, he does.
You know, I hate talking about myself, but you know, I'm relatively just a nice kind of guy.
I'm a nice guy.
I'm a nice guy.
I'm a nice guy.
Not to go back to the Down syndrome thing, but
let's go back to it.
Okay, I want to say for me, it's like the reason that it upset me, like that you lied about this story. For me, it's like saying, "Oh, I had cancer as a child, and then I overcame it, and I lived." Like it's like a story to kind of garnish this like sympathy. And it makes people want to listen to you. And then to find out that it was just a lie. So you're just going up there, just saying crazy stuff that none of it's true at all. And I feel like with stand-up, part of what makes it funny is that there's truth in a lot of these stories, you know? And also, like, regardless of what he did in Tijuana, okay, if it was an underage girl, obviously that's freaking horrible. But to say, oh, everything I say is a complete lie. Now it's like it gives you zero credibility for anything that you say now. Because now you're just saying that all my stories are made up lies. And then it's kind of interesting for me how Khalyla goes in there and she's like, oh yeah, and everything you've said about me ever, right, has been a lie too.
Oh boy, I mean it. If you guys ever wanted to go down a Khalyla Kuhn rabbit hole, you can go right on YouTube, like Khalyla Kuhn jacks off German Shepherd, the clip's right there. Khalyla Kuhn sleeps with brother and brother dies a month later. Like, I mean, that clip is there, like her saying these things. I mean, she's a problem. She started problems with Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen from The Fighter and the Kid, actually. Like, they started a whole nasty, like, big Reddit whole problem where, like, Brian and Brendan got super up in arms over them and stuff. And supposedly she might have been the one who created the whole problem. And she lied and said somebody else did and got Bobby in like a whole shitload of trouble. And she like put this whole thing out there about Bobby Lee agreeing to have like some open relationship with her, which he apparently never agreed to. And while he'd be in like rehab and stuff, she'd be going down to Hawaii and seeing some dude. She is...
Yeah,
and I mean, all of this stuff.
Like somebody cheated, and they're like, "Let's make it make sense." You know, after the fact.
She's wild, man. She's a problem.
And I wonder if this podcast was after they had broken up, because she's like, "Oh, yes." Like it seems like she's trying to say, "By the way, any joke that was about me, not true."
It was after they broke up.
If I were on a podcast with Frank, he would never he knows what's real and what's exaggerated. He would not feel like the need to go ahead and tell everybody. Exactly. I don't know that. Nobody needs to see how the sausage is made. I think it's like people don't listen to podcasts. I think they listen to podcasts. Oh, because comedians are being funny on a podcast. I think most people are not super concerned with like the origin of a bit. I could be wrong, but I don't unless you're like the mystery for me.
Well, I also find it interesting how people were like, "Oh, how did you not know that was a lie? Like, obviously, it was a lie." And it's just, I just find it interesting how now that's like you could just say something and be like, well, it's just that's comedy. It's just just straight
That's
up
part of
lying.
why
You just didn't think it
comedians
was
are
funny.
great is because we make horrible decisions, like time and time again, horrible decisions, date horrible people, and then we find a way to make it funny, or we experience tragedy, whether it's our fault or not, but we turn it into something funny. And it's hard to, I don't know, not like you're getting close to a comedian, but I guess part of what makes me like a comedian is knowing that they're making themselves vulnerable to the crowd and they are being honest.
That's what it is. And I think that's why it's so disappointing, because for me, it's like when he told that story about, you know, he was molested, it's like you make yourself so vulnerable, and it's you kind of like look at this person like, wow, look at how brave they are to talk about something so dark that happened to them. And it's like you're sharing this, and it's like that's part of why it's like funny. It's like time plus tragedy plus time equals comedy. So then to kind of find out, no, that was totally like didn't happen to me. I didn't go through that.
Yeah.
Again, for me, it's like someone saying, you know, it's like someone saying, I had cancer as a kid. I had leukemia and I went through chemo and I survived that. And then to come out later and be like, no, I never had chemo.
Yeah. Wasn't there a comedian that lied about being at 9/11 or something, or lied about having somebody that he knew die in 9/11? It was really a really bad lie that ended up coming out that he actually had nothing to do with 9/11. I forget what the exact, somebody in the chat will know. I think his name was Steve Rosinski. It's like when you reveal something personal with the crowd, yeah, you're making yourself vulnerable, but you're also like bonding with them a little bit, because it's like you reveal some truth, but then it's either dark comedy, like a dark truth, or it is, right, partially exaggerated, but there's, I think, oftentimes a nugget of truth, and then you spin it into comedy, right? So it's like that's like me saying, like, if I have jokes about my mom like dying of cancer, like in a brutal way, but then I spin it into something. Well, it's like the setup, the truth part. That's what bonds you to the audience, and then you spin it into something funny. And guess who's going to laugh at that joke? People who have also lost parents to cancer.
Yes.
If you go back and say, "Oh, sorry, my mom didn't actually die of cancer," then people go, "Oh," like it's almost like
you feel like you're scammed.
Trust anything you say? Are you just lying? Like, are we?
That is,
I don't know.
It's a weird form of betrayal, because like people get their emotions involved with you, because you're right, with the whole setup of it, there is some truth to it, whether it's completely true or not doesn't really matter, but people relate to you.
Yeah. And I guess too, it's just like to say that everything, and it's an easy way to kind of like cop out everything, just being like, I just make everything I say is completely made up. Nothing I say is real at all. These are all just fake stories.
No backsies. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is just 100% a lie. It's just a little, I don't know. I guess it's just a interesting discussion.